Good afternoon. Welcome to the September 21st meeting of the Cape Cod Regional Assembly of Delegates. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with a moment of silence to honor our troops who have died in service to our country and all those serving our country in the armed forces. Thank you, and now we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cheryl Anderson. Oh, sorry. Richard Anderson.
Here.
Cheryl Andrews. Ron Bergstrom.
Here.
Leo Kukunis. Christopher Kanega. James Killian. Marcia King.
Here.
Thomas Lynch.
Here.
Teresa Martin. Deborah McCutcheon.
Here.
Spiro Mitrakostas.
Here.
John Oman.
Here.
Paul Pilcher. Anthony Scalise.
Here.
Julia Taylor. Mr. Speaker, we have 79.09% of the delegates present and 20.91% absent.
Thank you. I'll now need a motion to approve the calendar of business.
Motion to approve the calendar of business for September 21st.
Second.
Any further additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. You should have received a copy of the Journal of September 7, 2011. Are there any additions or corrections to the Journal? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the Journal.
Mr. Speaker, I make a motion to approve the Journal September 7th, 2011.
Have a second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? One abstention. Two abstentions. Three abstentions. Well, I think we're still got 50% on that. So, okay. We now come to communications from the Board of Regional Commissioners. I see the Chairman of the Commissioners, Mr. Doherty.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to communicate from your Board of County Commissioners. Excuse me. Today, we had a presentation from Mike McGuire for the police chiefs and fire chiefs of Cape Cod on the use of electronic flares. I would recommend that if you have an opportunity to view it online where it will be, but it shows some of the progress that has been made with regard to reducing the use of flares that have a high amount of perchlorate in it. We also had discussed things with regard to the village of Barnstable, where we are both residents and and I guess major landlords, and we will be participating in the envisioning sessions with them, going forward. There were many interesting suggestions to be made, and I suggested that they might be going into competition with the Village Green, saying that, and I think that might be a very healthy one. We also discussed putting together a response for the Committee on Governance that has started to meet. They will have their first meeting here next, October 5th at 6:30. The public is certainly invited to come and observe And at that time, it would be our intention to make a general presentation on governance, although after having gone Saturday to the League of Women Voters presentation down in Harwich, ex-Senator and ex-Commissioner O'Leary certainly knows a lot about this matter, and since he was there at the beginning, and I find it difficult to imagine anything that the present Board of Commissioners could add to that, but we'll try. So with that, that's basically. Oh, and I had that item to submit on the transfer of funds. It is a ordinary transfer with regard to AmeriCorps.
Yeah, we have you've submitted a transfer of funds. We'll give it the resolution a name, and I think the Finance Committee is meeting at the next, on October 5th, so we'll be able to bring this matter up and probably for a full vote before the Assembly on the 19th. So,
Thank you.
do you have any questions for Commissioner Doherty? I have a question for you, Bill, since you're involved in the County Commissioners Association or something. Do you know if there are any other counties in Massachusetts that have a political structure similar to ours?
Actually, I don't think so, because if it comes to my Norfolk County, for example, has a board much like this assembly, and they elect an executive from that board. The Council of Governments, so-called COGs, have different types of setups, but they basically are service organizations.
Does Norfolk County have commissioners?
Yeah, they call themselves commissioners, but they actually sound more like delegates.
Oh, okay.
The Bristol, I think, has a board of commissioners, but no assembly. And Plymouth County has taken a vote since they got their salaries reduced to go out of business. So I don't know what the status of that is.
Well, if there's no further questions for Bill, I guess thank you very much, and until next time. Are there any communications from public officials? Hearing none. Any communications from members of the public? We'll start here. Sheila?
Good afternoon, my name is Sheila Bowen. I'm from Harwich, and after going to the meeting on county government last,
Is that microphone?
I don't.
Press the button.
The little green button?
No, the one below it says push.
Now it's on. Okay. My name is Sheila Bowen. I'm from Harwich. Although after attending the meeting last Saturday on county government, I think I should probably more rightfully say that I'm from Cape Cod, because my concerns are for the entire Cape. And I'm here just to say a couple of words about the ocean management plan that is before you today. I was here a couple of weeks ago when it was presented to you that you had basically two alternatives as far as this plan goes. That you could either vote to approve the plan, or you could not approve the plan and the DCPC would expire and the state would come in and put turbines wherever they chose at the 2-mile limit. And I would like to suggest a third alternative. And my suggestion would be that you consider a new DCPC, a new moratorium for a year, so that you can continue, so that the Cape Cod Commission can continue to study the subject. I think that it is such a divisive issue, and the potential for harming our environment is so severe that caution is the best road to take. I think that if they had another year and then possibly renewed for another year, whatever is necessary, it would give the Commission time to implement some of the factors that Paul Nedzwicki mentioned at the last meeting, one of them being to possibly provide the towns with a veto if one of their designated spots offshore was not something that the town welcomed. And another possibility would be to implement concerns for the health of citizens in addition to concerns for environmental factors. Another factor that has happened, I think, in the last 10 days was the Center for Biodiversity just announced 757 more species that are endangered. And that includes 47 fish and 172 plants and so forth. So our ecosystem is constantly changing and constantly in threat. And I think that we have to make certain that the right parameters are set up to protect the people of Cape Cod and the environment of the Cape. Thank you.
Thank you. I see another hand in the back. Identify yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Mitch Rowland from Brewster. As you know, I had submitted to you a copy of the petition that I had also submitted directly to the county commissioners, asking the county commissioners to refer the Brewster Wind project to Cape Cod Commission. The request to the Assembly was to support or recommend that the county commissioners make that referral. I'm here today. Also, I had sent to you an email letter just this past Monday night in anticipation of the remarks that I was going to make this afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the approximately 50 signatories to that petition, many of whom came to your Assembly meeting 2 weeks ago. The item itself could not be discussed because a quorum was no longer present, and we anticipated that it would be on today's agenda, but it is not. I understand the reason that was given to me, why it was not on the agenda. Legally, there is no application, there's no project that has been applied for. However, I think there is a strong rationale for the Assembly to express its sense regarding the petition, regarding the referral. And I'd like to briefly state the three reasons why I feel that it is appropriate to make that statement. Number one, this past Monday evening, the Brewster Board of Selectmen confirmed that the Brewster Wind project is on hold, that it will be seriously considered along with the proposals that they will be receiving regarding solar installation. It is not dead. In their mind, it still is a very real possibility. Number two, I think in this state, we are at a serious or important crossroads. As you know, there's a number of bills before the state legislature, commonly referred to as WESRA, Wind Energy Siting Reform Act. If passed, these bills would allow the state to exert great leverage in making decisions as to where these industrial wind turbines would be sited in this state, in this county. Who best speaks to the interests of residents of Barnstable County? Is it the state or is it the county? And number three, the minimum performance standards proposed and approved by the Assembly. It's a newly enacted ordinance. If you believe in it, if you trust it, I think it's important that you demonstrate your support and you demonstrate that county government is serious about having the county be the entity that would look out for the best interests of the residents and apply the laws and the ordinances that have been approved. Therefore, I'm asking as soon as possible that the item be put back onto the agenda, that you discuss it and demonstrate your support. I do one other piece of that I wanted to state too, back to the Brewster Board of Selectmen. I think it's important that if the Assembly supported the referral, that the Brewster Selectmen become aware of that they know what would be in the works if and when they decided to choose the wind project over the solar project. Why would they be in a position of supporting it and then becoming aware that a referral would be made, wouldn't it not be the appropriate thing to let Brewster or any other town in the same position to know this needs to be part of your decision? Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Bibler, and then I'll recognize Commissioner Lyons.
Thank you, Eric Bibler. I wrote a note to the Assembly delegates about the issue of the DRI referral, and I'm not going to rehash it, but I just wanted to emphasize one point. I was here at the last meeting when there was a lot of discussion about, with the presentation from the Cape Cod Commission, about preserving the autonomy of Barnstable County with respect to state authority and determining their own fate for these consequential projects, and that's one of the reasons, maybe the prime reason it was given to support the ocean management plan, which didn't seem particularly popular to people from districts who would be looking at them, or anyone else, it didn't seem. In this case, with this discretionary referral, I think we all realize that the county commissioners are the executive branch of government, and they have the statutory authority to refer a project that files for a permit. But I think, we were all here in this room when the discussion ensued over the minimum performance standards and the threshold, and I think it was generally agreed that these land-based wind turbines that are 400 and 500 feet tall in the case of Bourne are quite clearly developments of regional impact. They can cross borders, their impacts. They can be in the corner of a district between 3 different towns, that sort of thing. The threshold was not agreed. The need, though, for Barnstable County to have some better form of regulation that recognized the regional impacts was acknowledged, and the minimum performance standards were passed. There's no mechanism for referring these projects now except for an abutting town or the county government. And so we have a law, an ordinance that's been approved as the law of the land that has a glaring defect. It may be that this project has not officially been, the permit application, whatever you want to call it, hasn't been filed with the DPU, but CVEC has approved a board resolution. The Cape Light Compact has funded it. They have trumpeted their intention to do so. The Brewster selectmen have made it very clear they're proceeding on a dual track. And any review of the project would take place as it currently stands if you don't act. If this county government doesn't act, it would take place at the DPU, which has no existing criteria, no procedures for reviewing these things. So we believe that it's appropriate for the Assembly to recognize that their ordinance is defective if it can't be activated, and to simply send a sense of the committee that if and when this project proceeds to the point where a permit is filed, that it is your clear desire and intention to have it reviewed as a development of
Mr.
regional
Bibler,
impact.
I don't want to cut you short. We have other business to
Okay.
attend to. I did say that I would bring this up again, and I put it on the last agenda. Shortly after that, the Brewster Board of Selectmen chose not to pursue it. So even then, there wasn't an official, the Assembly of Delegates is a legally constituted body. We do things sometimes in a very casual manner, and maybe that's partially my fault, but the truth is we're a legally constituted body. We cannot act on a presumption that something is going to be sent. We can't act on it, and I won't allow it. If I have a document in front of me, then I can bring it up before the Assembly. If I don't have a document in front of me, your assertion or CVEC's assertion that they're going to do something doesn't mean anything. All right? So if and when there is actually a proposal that we can look at and decide whether we want to ask somebody else to do something, then we may bring this petition up again. But until then, it's not going to happen. I have to tell you that, because it would be irresponsible for me to do that. We don't chase things. We don't chase them as they move around. We like things on paper. That's what it is. It's not in consideration on my part. It's just it's the way business has to be done.
Well, could we have your commitment that you would put it on the agenda if it were filed?
This goes, since it has nothing to do with the actual authority of the assembly, this comes up with the sense of the assembly. Now, I've sat in town meetings where we declared Chatham a nuclear-free zone, we decided, that all dogs should be on the beach. I mean, there's a lot of things we can say, even
Right.
though we have no authority, and I don't mind doing that if the delegates don't mind doing it either, and so I'd like to accommodate people, so yeah, I will bring it up again.
Fair enough. I think that's
Okay.
fair. Thank you.
Anyway, Commissioner Lyons?
Thank you for letting me come now in public comment when you already spoke for elected officials. I thought that there may be public comment on the Ocean DCPC, and I did want to speak to that since there may not be another opportunity. It was a year ago, December, that myself and the Board of Commissioners actually nominated that Ocean DCPC, and that came from, and I just want to bring us back in time, the Ocean Management Act. The Ocean Management Act came as a result that was filed by Senator O'Leary and written by Senator O'Leary as a response to, I think, the fallout of Cape Wind. There were no standards for Cape Wind. There is a huge ocean out there now for all kinds of development, and there's no zoning, as we would have on land. There are no rules, there are no regulations, and he saw that that was part of the problem, where people sort of then went into their corners without some sort of rational structure to do their discussion around. From the Ocean Management Act came the charge that an ocean management plan be put into place. And that also was a very concentrated effort with people from here on the Cape who advocated very strongly, particularly the chairman of that committee who headed that planning effort, Richard Delaney, who is the executive director of Coastal Studies, that there be local control and that there be local say. So out of much wrangling, the ocean management plan did state that the control and the rules would be set up by the local regional planning agencies, the RPAs. Our RPA is the Cape Cod Commission. Now, they have the authority to go ahead and do what they need to do to set up those parameters, but instead, they set up a process where they brought 15 towns together, boards of selectmen, members of each board of selectmen, to hash out what this was. Under this plan, we're given 24 turbines, hypothetically. We don't have them in hand, but we have the ability to have that amount of turbines right now. And that is all based on our population and area that we cover. I support this effort in that it was an awful lot of work done by 15 towns who did not always agree, by a staff that put in tremendous amounts of effort so that we would have a structure of local control. The Ocean Management Plan, the DCPC being put forward, it allows a vehicle for towns to come to. It's in a sense, a board or a process that allows local voice. And they've come to a structure and an agreement of what's acceptable. And we all know that even though there is now some sort of structure or regulations or ordinances around it, it doesn't mean that those are cast in stone. Once a project comes before the commission, each project is an individual project, and they will have to answer the questions of public safety, safety to habitat, safety to marine industry that happens, fisheries and shellfish. All of the questions that may be posed, that these things should be considered. If you read the plan carefully, they are included in that. So I advocate this going forward and that you voting in favor of this because the RPA is charged with doing it anyway. And this, in the process that we went through, brought 15 towns together that worked very hard to come to a consensus. So with that, I encourage you to vote for this. It is an opportunity for you to show that leadership in conjunction with the towns that have also put in the work and the effort. So I thank you for that. And if I can just speak to the two gentlemen that just preceded me, it is a moot subject at this point, and if it becomes a viable subject again, it would be addressed by the county commissioners as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other communications from members of the public? I see a hand in the back. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sims McGrath, I'm an Orleans selectman, and I was the Orleans representative to the Ocean Management Plan Committee, and it's in that role that I wish to speak to you today. The previous speaker touched on many of the points I would make. As a person involved in the deliberations with the representative from other towns, I can safely say that the document that has been presented to you is a collaboration of many municipalities, their individual needs, and as many of us have heard recently, it is important that we start acting in concert and start acting as a region. This document is an opportunity for you to help the municipalities maintain control of their own destiny as a region. I would encourage your support of the Cape Cod Oceans Management Plan.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Very well, the Assembly will now convene, and we will start with a report of Standing Committee on Finance dated 8/17/11 and 9/7/11. We're doing things a little differently. We usually have a report from the committee at the end of the meeting, but since we're going to vote on this issue, it made more sense to have the report from the committee before we vote on it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Oman.
Thank you. On August 17th, the Standing Committee on Finance convened a public hearing at Nauset Beach in East Orleans on proposed ordinance 1108 to allocate $35,000 for pesticide fertilizer inventory. There was no one there at the time from the county or other entities in support of it, and in that vacuum of information, we decided to continue that hearing. Do you want to vote on that?
Yep.
Okay. If I may have a vote of the Finance Committee members present, if that is an accurate...
Well, you could probably vote on if the meeting was continued, you could probably vote on the entire thing.
That's what I would prefer to do. Thank you. We reconvened on September 7th on the same proposed ordinance, 1108. We had due diligence, and we had a vast amount of information presented to us by the county regarding, in a more specific set of terms, what they wanted to do with it. And after due deliberation, we voted 3 to 1 to present it to the county favorably. And I would prefer that we do that right now. Thank you.
Okay. You want to take a vote on that?
May I have a vote on this from the attended members of the Committee on Finance? All those in favor? Aye. And any opposed?
Okay. So now you're going to move to recommend approval?
Now I would like to recommend we move approval of proposed ordinance 1108 as written to the full Assembly of Delegates.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. Okay, is there any discussion on this? Any of the delegates like to weigh in on this? We've discussed this already. Oh, okay, Cheryl.
Are we getting a minority report, or is this the proper place to act?
The minority report is basically discusses the deliberations of the committee. It's not a pro, for, or against thing. It simply says what you did and how you voted.
I know, that's why I don't understand why we vote on it, but since there is...
Because otherwise, it's basically you're making it official, the record of the meeting, okay, by voting on it. You understand?
Well, I'm learning. Can we get a minority report?
You can, anybody can say anything at this point. Yeah, minority. I see a minority right over there, Leo.
I think the delegate is asking, and maybe I'm putting words in her mouth, the votes were recorded as a 3 to 1, 3 in favor and 1 opposed, and I believe that's the minority she's asking for. I was the one that voted in opposition of bringing this forward. We had, as which was reported, there was no proponent at the first meeting, and there was some open discussion about exactly what this was and what it was for, and we decided to continue it, and I did agree to that. And at the continuance at the meeting, I think it was September 7th, there were members from the Cape Cod Commission present. There were also members from the county commissioners present, and they were able to answer a lot of our questions, specifically telling us what this money was appropriated for. There was some discussion on, are we waiting for other funds to come forward? And I believe the answer was, and I think the minutes will reflect it, that the Cape Cod Commission is in fact going to be putting up some funds towards this also, and they will actually be conducting the work. I voted against it on a financial purpose reason only. I had concerns at the beginning of the meeting to what we were doing, and do we really need to spend this money to do this survey, if you will. And I have to tell you, at the end of the meeting, I figured that if we in fact are going to, as a regional government through the Cape Cod Commission, to be looking at putting forward things that are going to be asking our residents to cut down their fertilizer or pesticide use, it would probably be smart to have a threshold. Find out where we are today, so that when we do this educational stuff, if that's what comes out of this, and asking residents to cut down on use, we'll be able to track it. In 5 years, we'll be able to see if we put, as a community across the Cape, put 10,000 pounds of fertilizer on in 2011, and through this education, now we're only putting 5,000 down. So it made sense to, in fact, do this survey, if you will. But I did vote against it, and I voted against it primarily and really because of the financial impact. As all of you remember, I did an extensive amendment to the budget. I am still not comfortable with the budget that was voted. I voted against the budget, and I feel that I have to take that stand, even as a small allocation of $30,000. At some point, I think it's my fiduciary responsibility to stand up and say, I'm not happy with where we have come through 2010, and I certainly am not comfortable with what I've been hearing with the current fiscal year that we're in. Finance Committee is going to be getting a detailed report on the year that we just closed out, and I just felt that, you know what, this is not a pressing issue, and I think it was my responsibility to vote against the transfer for that reason. Thanks.
Okay. Does anyone else like to address this subject? I guess not. Well, we'll take a vote.
Richard Anderson.
Yes.
Cheryl Andrews.
No.
Ronald Bergstrom.
Yes.
Leo Kukunis.
No.
James Killian.
No.
Marcia King.
Yes.
Thomas Lynch.
Yes.
Deborah McCutcheon.
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas.
No.
John Oman.
Yes.
Anthony Scalise.
Yes.
Julia Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, proposed ordinance 1108 passes with 66.0% voting yes, 27.63% voting no, 6.30% absent.
Thank you. Now move on to item 12 on our agenda, the report of Standing Committee on Government Regulations, a proposed ordinance 11-09 to establish implementing regulations for Ocean Management Planning District of Critical Planning Concern pursuant to the Cape Cod Commission Act. Most of you were here for this hearing that we held. And I would hope everyone's familiar with the details. We have representatives from the commission here if we want to suspend the rules, but I think we've been given the information and understand what the issue is. The Standing Committee on Government Regulations recommends approval of this. I don't remember what the vote was. Do you remember what the vote was? It was I think it was unanimous. Was it? Unanimous vote. I would move that that the Assembly approve this. I need a second. Moved in second. Okay, is there any discussion on this?
Tom? I guess I'll start. I had real concerns when I saw the map that was up there, because I felt that there was certain rationale used for excluding some areas, and not a similar rationale, I thought, to exclude other areas that were just included as a place where you would encourage development. And I was particularly concerned with that whole area that is in front of Cape Wind. And to that end, I just put together a little chart that I'll just show you, if I may. This is just a nautical chart of, the Nantucket Sound that covers the area mostly from Pompanesett down here to Point Gamma. And this is the standard, this is the 3-mile limit right here. According to Commission regulations, they're only going to do they're excluding the 2-mile limit, so you're left with this mile barrier right in here. So that red line represents the 2-mile limit. The black line represents the 3-mile limit. So if I were drawing the charts, and I knew that a considerable amount of boat traffic came out of Hyannis in a harbor, this Kennedy compound over there, Hyannisport breakwater there, comes out to what's known as the MOA buoy, which kind of divides you in terms of going to Nantucket, or if you're going to come out over here to the Vineyard. You come right across this area, which is, they're saying, okay, we can develop in that area. Developer, you come along, you can look in this area. Martha's Vineyard traffic comes right across here, comes up to number 8, which is right, this buoy right there. Then it cuts down right in through, again, this trafficked area to number 10, and then starts out off to the Vineyard, which again would be all in this area off of Falmouth and Pompanesett. So I would have thought that if you were looking at a chart and you were taking areas out, you would probably exclude much of this area, all of this area, much of this area where the daily boat traffic goes back and forth, all in through here. Can't do it there because that's the way that all of the Martha's Vineyard, and all the Nantucket Steamship Authority Highline, that's where they all go to go out. That should all be excluded. And yet we're saying to developers, it's okay, well, you can put a proposal in for these areas. Later we might knock you out. I think it's only fair to say to those developers, you can't do it there. And plus you're going to be, that's not even counting the boat traffic that, comes out of Oyster Harbors and that area, West Bay, out of the East Bay area that's right over here, comes all out into this area. Nantucket Shoals is just beyond the 3-mile limit, and that was my concern when I saw the amorphous area that was there. So I would want a DCPC map or chart that clearly defined those areas, just as we had a little bit off of, the Sandwich area where you could do it. If you're going to do those sorts of markings, do them in that way. I'm actually surprised that we're doing anything in Nantucket Sound after the 10-year fight plus with Cape Wind. And, there are numerous effects that are going to have them for what is, 5 or 6 miles off. If you stop putting them in this area, you can stand on Craigville Beach and look at, this is called number 5 right there. You look at that 5 buoy, it's a flashing green light at night. You can see it from the shore, and it's about 8 feet tall. You can look out on any day, and I could show it to you, at shore level. And so now you're going to put something 410 feet, and that's actually outside the 3-mile limit. You're going to move it inside that. And it just, to me, doesn't make sense to do. So I hope that, and I also thought that the arguments that were in the paper by Eric Turkington, I thought, summarized a lot of these issues very well. But I don't think the Cape Cod Commission should encourage development in these areas if we know they're not going to be able to do, someone's not going to be able to do it. If they're going to be able to do it somewhere, show them exactly where it is and then enforce the various regs.
All right.
So I'm going to vote no on this.
Anybody have any comments? Leo?
I'm not really sure where I'm going to go on this one, to be honest with you. This has been a tough one for me, and I'll tell you there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, I found it almost, I don't know, redundant and silly that I had to listen to the same comments that we need to pass an ordinance like this so we won't have the state telling us what to do, and this is the essence of regional government. Yet, on the other flip of the coin, and I know it's not pertinent to this discussion, but on the other flip of the coin, through my own town, I have a reluctance of using the Cape Cod Commission to, in fact, enforce the laws we already have on the books. I think it's kind of silly in the way that I'm being asked to pass another one that somehow is going to be circumvented later on. Your concerns, I agree with. I did have some issues with the map. I think those were settled with me with the Cape Cod Commission's response that although this shows us where we would like to see the development, there are still other remaining hurdles for any developer to face. Let's face it, they're not going to be able to put a tower in the middle of the commerce back and forth to Nantucket from not only Woods Hole, but certainly from Hyannis, and then in my own town in Harwich, we have a Nantucket ferry. So I'm sure those ferry lines would supersede that area. And I agree with the delegate. I do think that this map should have showed that because it's truth in, I don't know, advertising, I guess. If we're advertising to a developer, let's take the time and block out those other issues too. The other thing that's probably even concerning to me, yet again, I'm having a hard time deciding on what I should do as a representative sitting on this board. We were told that a very, very large section is being excluded on the Bayside because of its effects, although not scientifically proven yet, but although there is some evidence that it is affecting the right whales. And I believe the comment was made, it was either 265 or 365 pair or a total of 700. I'm not really sure the numbers, but it was relatively small. And their breeding habits, directly related to noise and vibration. Yet, I was handed, as early as even today, a document that says wind farm noise is found to be safe. And in fact, there is no established direct link between its health and noise generated by wind farms. So here we are in one sentence saying, well, you know what, we're really concerned with the breeding habits of whales and we don't want to see any development at all in this whole area. But I'm here to tell you, and I hope this doesn't come off wrong, but I'm sure there's a lot of residents that, specifically from Falmouth, that are probably having trouble in their breeding habits because of their effects of the wind towers that they've been so graciously coming here and telling us. Yet we shrug it off and we say, there's no ill effects, don't worry about it, you're fine. But by virtue of this vote, if I do support it, I'm actually saying, you know what? The sound and vibration from these towers does in fact hurt the right whales, and I don't want them in that area. I guess there's no answer to my question, and I really look forward to hearing some more debate on this, because I hope it's just not Tom and I that are going to talk about it, because I'm still open about how I'm going to vote.
Anybody else? Julia?
Well, I don't want to try and talk you into anything, Leo, but my position on wind in general, from the day I first heard about the Cape wind, has been, I could be open to wind turbines. I could even be open to big, tall wind turbines, but what I can't stand is no zoning. And I want a quid pro quo, I want zoning, I want some regulation. Tom may be right that this isn't fair to the developers of the turbines, because they might get confused looking at the map, thinking that this area is all open to them. But presumably, they will be hiring top legal counsel who will actually read the regulations and warn them that there are quite a few more conditions in there and that it isn't carte blanche in this 1 mile area. And if we don't have the zoning, the Cape Cod Commission will still have the authority over turbines built on either side of the either waters, but they'll be back to that problematic standard of just it shouldn't be too harmful, and that's too hard for them to enforce. Whereas if we pass this, there will be a long list of standards which can be invoked and which will, to some degree, make the placement, if they're going to exist, better than if we don't pass it. And I'm just not that concerned about their feeling they've got a free rein in that 1 mile area. I think they'll figure that out okay, and that we're still better to go with some regulation here.
I'm not going to support this, and I was just going to say no when my time came, but then since I've been a supporter of the commission in the past, I thought that was kind of unfair. And I'm going to say that part of it is NIMBY. I mean, and I'm not going to try to justify it with some overall philosophical, argument against the regulations. I'm sure they're good regulations, but at the end of the day, when it came down to it, it impacts my town, the area that I know very, very well, and that I recreate in. I was out in my day sail this morning. I was sailing up and down the coast just inside Hardings Beach. I mean, and because of the unique situation of Chatham, where we have Monomoy Island is part of Chatham and extends down to the south, which creates a sort of a right angle. And since it's part of Chatham, we have a 2 mile designation and then another mile after that that's designated here. And that mile actually intersects with the mile coming off of the south shore of Chatham and Hardings Beach. And so it essentially creates a large area that would be more open to wind turbines, at least not taken out of the picture automatically. Now, I say that. Now, if I was the delegate from Brewster or Provincetown, maybe I would vote for this. I mean, I'm not trying to, duck this at all. I mean, this is a personal thing with me, and I have to admit it. I've been part of the wind turbine debate, as Tom has, out in Nantucket Sound with Cape Wind, and I would not want to impose that upon any town or community. I mean, regardless of the outcome, it's been a very, very unhappy process, very contentious process. And to think that that might happen to the communities that are adjacent to me, specifically Chatham and Harwich, is something that I'm not looking forward to. Now, the problem that I have, and I say I'm going to vote against it, the damage is already done. In other words, somebody coming in the door knows right away, the work has been done by the Cape Cod Commission. So somebody coming in the door would say, I'm not going to cite one in Cape Cod Bay because I already know that they've done the work and I know there's reasons they're going to put in there. So whether we pass this or not, I think that developers are going to concentrate on the areas that have been designated. But there are reasons to do, as Tom says, there's reasons not to put them in certain areas, and there's overall reasons to put them in other areas. And I think that it not necessarily be a bad thing if each one has to justify itself, trade-off between whales and traffic, trade-off between, environmental concerns and so on. So, like I say, I'm not urging anybody to do anything. I'm just saying that on my 3%, I'm going to vote against it. So.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
So are you asking the Cape Cod Commission to come in with better and more stringent regulations? Because if we don't pass it and we don't request that, then we are going to have virtually no regulation, and they're going to be in a position to vote for or against any proposals, but they will have fewer legal
Well, here's the issue.
ways to prevent
What I'm
them.
suggesting is that, I mean, if I vote, you see, that, you got to remember that this was all put into place by the state that allotted us a certain quota, 24. So we're not, unlike most regulatory authorities where you say, well, you can't build a house there, well, that's one less house you're going to build. But in this case, it's not necessarily one less turbine that goes up. There still could be 24, it's just we're arguing over where they're going to be. So it's not limiting in a number sense.
I don't think that's right. I think that there aren't going to be 24.
I don't think they're going to be any beyond.
And that we're better off to have the strictest regulation that's available at this time to make sure that there's more power by the commission to deal. I think you're much more likely to have 24 if they're put in a position of having to vote yes or no on the basis of a very ungood legal standard. Then if I were a wind turbine developer, I would think that was great. Now I know that the standard I have to meet is a lot less, and I'm more likely to go forward.
Well, maybe I'm weak at the knees here, but I just don't want to go back to the people of Chatham and say that I voted for something that designated a major area quite visible to our town and so on as the place, as one of the places that we could put wind turbines. Now, how you vote is fine. I'm just saying this is a very personal thing with me. I'm not urging anybody else for or against. I'm just saying that my town, my interests, I can be parochial once, and I'm going to do it,
I don't think you're getting more protection for your town by voting.
Mr. Speaker.
John.
Now, that was my point, Julie. I don't think you're going to get more protection by voting, though, on this. I think that with this, you're going to leave more ability for the state to do anything it damn well pleases. And I think that, is this a perfect ordinance and a perfect map? No. But it's too important an opportunity to pass on for our local control. I just think we need to do this, and I'm going to vote yes because of that.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand. Ms. Taylor suggested that we could send it back to the commission seeking stricter regulation. Is that right?
Well, we can vote up or down, all right? And we can suggest each individual delegate may suggest what they would vote for and not vote for, but we cannot change it. And we can't say, send it back to us and we'll do this or we'll do that. We don't have the power to do that. We can either vote up or down, and if we vote down, or we can remand it back to the commission, I guess. I don't know. We're about to find out if we suspend the rules.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to suspend the rules to listen to the Cape Cod Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Mrs. McCutcheon's question as to what our role is.
Paul Nizwicki, Executive Director of the Cape Cod Commission. We are at the end of the DCPC process now, so we've nominated the DCPC. That's about to expire. So there's been a moratorium, so nothing can happen out there in that 12-month process while we put together regulations. In that time, we've convened a technical committee, we've convened a stakeholder committee, and we've convened really for the first time prior to the development of ordinances, a policy committee that includes elected officials from every one of your towns that has participated in making recommendations that these ordinances are based on. So the very specific discussions that you're having about what should be in and what should be out were part of those discussions debated by elected officials from all of 15 towns. So these are not staff-driven recommendations of the Cape Cod Commission. Those recommendations are in front of you today. If you think that we've left something out, then I would be happy to reconvene the policy committee to consider an amendment to the ordinances or to the map going forward. However, to vote against the ordinance today would allow the DCPC moratorium to expire and to allow to have no protections in state waters. We convened this process to give your 15 towns a voice in what the appropriate scale for wind development would be out there. If you choose not to honor that voice in adopting these resources, then you've passed on that local option, and we're going to leave the state waters out there without the embodiment of the 15 towns as a function of this policy committee and having a voice in how that's going to happen. You're still going to leave the Cape Cod Commission with the authority to vet 24 turbines and to try to find some tenuous legal rationale for examining projects that come in. But in my opinion, to vote on protections that you feel don't go far enough, to vote them down, is not the correct process. That's sort of like cutting off your nose to spite your face. I would be more than happy to reconvene the policy committee to consider any sort of changes you'd like to the map, but I'd like to get at least a baseline, at least what we've agreed on, codified. And a lot of the areas, especially the North Atlantic right whale habitat, has been designated by the state. So that's on the state map anyway. So that's prohibited. You can't do that out there. It's expanded somewhat here. And that 2-mile buffer around the entire perimeter only takes effect if we pass this ordinance and go forward. So I don't understand the logic in voting down an ordinance because you feel it doesn't go far enough to leave you completely unprotected. To, a little case in history is that we did this with the land-based turbines in Bourne, where the Assembly sent those standards back as being insufficient. And subsequent to that, there was a project that then was not subject to the standards. So under the guise of protecting Bourne residents, you left them unprotected. And so I don't understand that if the process is you'd like to see more protections out there and more designations, then I would recommend convening the policy committee again and continue to have these discussions. But to not move forward with baseline restrictions out there at the end of the DCPC process, to me seems to be counterproductive, to be polite. Thanks.
So just to follow up on my question, so you say you'd be happy to reconvene your committee to consider the revisions revisions to the maps to reflect the concerns that have been raised here.
Yes.
How would we, assuming we were to vote to pass these regulations, how would we then ensure that you went ahead and reconvened? What do we do? We do a...
Well, I'm offering today to reconvene the policy committee, and the Assembly's been, any member of the public is willing to show up at any of these committees and give their input. If you wanted it to be, if we wanted to involve a subcommittee of the Assembly in that, I'd be willing to do that too. I mean, any process where the Commission and the Assembly can work forward prospectively on additional legislation, I think we're open to. I mean, I would encourage that.
Well, that's what I would prefer to have happen. I think these regulations are necessary. I'm convinced from your presentation last time that we need the baseline protections, but I certainly don't want to leave the Speaker or the town of Barnstable out there in their boats with, wind turbines, 24 of them apparently, going up next week.
But the final sort of process point, what the policy committee debated was that there are certain things you can draw lines around when you do marine spatial planning in the marine environment. And there are certain things you can't, like eelgrass. Eelgrass moves. So we have those demarcations that we felt confident drawing lines around. A lot of those are consistent with what the state started. And then we have a whole host of minimum performance standards that would be applied to a particular project wherever they put it in. It is significantly more difficult, and there's more public protection for a proposed project anywhere in state waters upon adoption of these ordinances than there would be without adopting those ordinances.
John, did you have a question? Somebody down here? No?
I had a question.
All right. I'll go to Tom and then to Spiro.
I'm interested in the discussion of the group that said it was okay to have wind turbines in a navigational zone where boats go. Well, you're shaking your head, but this is it, right here. From here to, the boat goes right through there to Martha's Vineyard. Why didn't you and the technical committee, well, I'm asking what the discussion was. Why didn't people say, let's take this 3 miles out, because daily a boat goes back and forth to Martha's Vineyard, it's a high-speed ferry, and we don't want anyone thinking they can put a turbine there. Why did we leave it all like you could do it? Why didn't they just knock it out?
For the record, Heather McElroy, Cape Cod Commission. I don't recall the exact conversation, but the policy committee was very clear that they did not want turbines to be placed within navigational areas, and we have a performance standard within the body of regulations that prohibits turbine development within navigational channels, whether for commercial or, ferry traffic, et cetera. I think the performance standard provides greater flexibility in enforcing that standard than drawing a hard and fast line on a map.
But why didn't you draw it on the map? I mean, we saw a map that had circled areas, and you had it all mapped out where you couldn't do it because of the whale, and all you have to do here is, I don't know what those navigational standards are. You're going to make 1,000 feet on either side of the turbine? Show us what it is. And I think, again, you've got it going, your permitted area where a developer could come in and tell us that's where they want it. And, I have a trouble with saying, we're encouraging you to come here. We're encouraging you to do it off of Pompanesett or off of Osterville in that particular area. Take it out. Show them the patches, where it might be. And I don't think that, if it has all the expertise that you talked about, I would have think drawing the map would have been the simplest thing. And when that's left out, I get nervous about that.
Understandable question, but I think as Heather pointed out, the debate in the committee was that the standard without drawing lines offered more protection, not less protection. If you'd like to reconvene the policy committee to have that debate, that discussion again about whether it would be better to limit that rather than have an expansive minimum performance standard, that's fine too.
All right. Spiro, did you have a comment here?
I have a relatively quick question, then followed by a comment. The question is, as a regional planning agency specified in the Oceans Act, without this set of regulations, the Cape Cod Commission would still be the agency that a project was referred to off our coastal waters.
Yes.
You just won't be able to apply these particular regulations to review of those projects.
The state statute authorizes coastal regional planning agencies, coastal RPAs, of which we are one. They allocate a certain number of turbines to be determined, to be metered out by the RPAs. And without these standards, it's going to trigger a DRI. It says in the state statute outside of the Commission Act that we would have to review it as a DRI. So it's very much like the Bourne situation where we would trigger DRI review and have no stated standards.
This is where I get lost in the conversation. This is a set of regulations to further control development in the ocean. This isn't always about wind turbines. Not everything is about wind turbines. It looks like we're turning everything that we discuss in here about turbines. More than likely, with these maps, the turbine applications you're going to get are from municipalities because these areas are so narrowly defined. Only Sandwich can propose 2 turbines off the coast in Sandwich. Having said that, more than likely, the commercial applications that you're going to be seeing are for mining or for cable laying. And without these set of regulations, you got to default to something else on those issues.
There are no commercial developments allowed. They would have to be, in order to be defined as community wind, there would have to be a municipal benefit to one of the projects coming forward.
That's my point. I think we're talking about, at the moment, not having that application, that standard applied. They've narrowed the areas that these developments can go in. They've imposed a public component to it, and yet we're saying to them, we don't like the map. I think they made a good faith effort to come up with the appropriate set of regulations from which to start. And if we'd like to amend them going forward, we can ask them to do that.
Oh, just last comment. I'm just worried that if the DCPC expires, we have nothing. I don't think that's desirable, and it will expire very soon.
Cheryl, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the risk of extending this debate much longer, I did want to ask one question, simply because when this issue ends up in the local press, my question that I'm going to ask you about, which has to do with the seashore property, tends to get glossed over. And yet, a lot of people I know that live out near me think that the most perfect place for putting these kinds of wind turbines is from one end of the back beach to the other. It's where all the wind is. There are very few whales and certainly no ferries because you can't get there from here. So the assumption is then that, is it that the federal seashore is claiming that we have no state land, no state waters out there? And I ask this especially because Provincetown does have a piece of property out on the coast. I assume you always get reminded about that. And some of us know it's wide enough for a cable that could go to wind turbines. So could you address that issue, and what do you see as, what's the difference between developing, the state issue on one side of the Cape versus the other, the ocean side versus the bay?
Yes. Well, these regs only apply to state waters, but specifically in the state act itself, they refer to the Cape Cod Ocean Sanctuary, which runs from the north of Provincetown down the Atlantic coast, and they specifically prohibit in the state act any construction in the Cape Cod Ocean seashore. And there wasn't a lot of debate about that because the continental shelf is much closer on the Atlantic side, so you don't have as much shallow depth where you could build these things, and it drops off pretty radically. So that's why the Cape Cod Ocean Sanctuary there's no development, all developments out there is prohibited. And that's why there was no real pushback on it.
So the state acted, not
Yes.
the federal?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Yeah, Tony?
When does the DCPC, I'm sorry. When does the DCPC expire?
October 21st.
So that's about a month, just about a month from now. Does that give you enough time to reconvene and come back with some of the issues that my fellow delegates have expressed?
No. And what's the notice requirement?
No, we have it.
I mean, it doesn't seem like we have more than 3 or 4 issues, right, Tom?
We have a 17-day notice requirement to have a public hearing at the commission. You have noticing requirements. It's not, I don't believe it's possible to get it back here in time, no.
I understand where Tony's coming from, but I got a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded, so unless people start taking back their motions, I have to call for a vote at some point. And when we've exhausted our debate over this, and it looks like we're getting exhausted right now. Anybody have anything else to say? If not, we'll call for a vote.
Richard Anderson?
Yes.
Cheryl Andrews?
Yes.
Ronald Bergstrom?
No.
Leo Kukunis?
Yes.
James Killian?
No.
Marcia King?
No.
Thomas Lynch?
No.
Deborah McCutcheon?
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas?
No.
John Oman?
Yes.
Anthony Scalise?
No.
Julia Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, proposed ordinance 1109 does not pass. 38.30% voting yes, 55.40 voting no, 6.30 absent.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to reports of committees. I don't know if we've had any committees. Both committees that met have already reported the government regs and finance. Do we have a report from the clerk? Oh, yeah, well, we kind of continued that. But all right, well, I'll give a report then on the meeting of the special committee. We heard testimony from the Mr. McLaughlin, who is the head of the CVEC, and also from Maggie Downey, who is, works for the county, and according to the management agreement, they gave a presentation which should be available to all the delegates. They then took questions from the five of us, myself, Deborah McCutcheon, James Killian, Leo Kukunas, and John Oman. And we decided at the end of the meeting to adjourn and meet at a date uncertain right now, but probably the second meeting in October, which would be the 21st or 19th. Do you have a question on that, Tom? Or, no, okay. So that's what we did, and a lot of you were here, but that's my report. Do we have a report from the clerk?
Just quickly, when Commissioner Doherty was speaking to you all, he mentioned the fact that the special commission was going to be meeting again on the 5th of October here, and that is also an assembly meeting day. They're scheduling it, I think, for 6:30, and they're still in the process of updating their email list and their contact list. So as I get that update and it keeps flushing out, I will send that information to you. Once I get the official notice, I'll send that to the delegates. I haven't received it yet, but I just thought a reminder in case you need to put that on your calendar. And that's all that I have.
Okay, is there any other business?
Mr. Speaker?
Yes?
For a future meeting, hopefully sooner rather than later, and since the Commissioner Doherty is still here, we received a report relative to the establishing a baseline for future decision-making dated August from the commissioners in our packages recently, conducted by MMA Consulting. If anyone took the time to look at this, it restructures the administration of our county's government. I'd like to know from the commissioner at a future meeting, not today, where this stands, where this is going, because any implementation of it or parts of it will have ramifications on the budget that we're going to start to look at in another few months. So if we can put it on. I have a feeling I downloaded this and printed it, although it was sent to us.
Okay.
It's quite substantial, makes some significant changes to the the structure of our departments and the reporting of department heads and whatnot. So quite separate from the county committee that has been looking at, I guess, the value of various parts of county government. This is a real consultant's report on how to restructure the workings of it.
Okay, thank you. I had the occasion to attend the first meeting of this special commission on county government. Unfortunately, it wasn't posted, so we discussed simply procedural matters, the most significant of which the fact that we're going to meet again on the 5th of October. There are 25 people who are on this committee, 25. I always thought that a 5-person committee was good. 7 you can handle, 9 was too many, 25 is, but, you know, I don't want to be presumptuous, but if anybody has attended, I also attended the Saturday meeting of the League of Women Voters, and it was quite a presentation on regionalization by someone who's a professor from Illinois. And he talked about, his main point was regionalization doesn't always work. In some cases, it actually costs more than others. But that was followed by commentary from the 4 people up on the podium, Senator O'Leary, Maggie Geist from Association for Preservation of Cape Cod, former Senator O'Leary, Senator Wolf, and the Executive Director of the Cape Cod Commission, Paul Niswicki. And to be very frank, they all took turns bashing the assembly. I mean, without reservation. If you were there, if you were squirming in your seat, wherever you were that Saturday morning around 11 o'clock, you know why. And I think that if anybody has any reservations about where this special commission is being directed, you should drop those reservations right away, because it is an open. It's on the table now that they're not happy with the assembly, particularly with the weighted vote, which I tried to explain to them was mandated by the Constitution, but they details and which also Yeah, and also with the Assembly, and I have to be very frank, and I don't think today's vote is going to help us either, because there's just more ammunition for the, so if you're thinking about running for reelection, maybe you should think again, because you may be running for a different office. Yeah, but that being said, I intend to be I'm on the committee, I'm going to be an intricate part of the process. I'm going to try to steer it toward rational decisions, but yeah, it's already decided, Lisa, but anyway, that's my sad experience, so. Yeah. Yeah, Deborah was there also, by the way, I should mention, and as was Teresa. Yeah.
Well, I was moving on to another subject, but yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that the general tenor of the whole meeting was that we're pretty useless, and I think the Cape Cod Commission kind of thinks that they would rather have us out of the way. That was very clear from the presentation.
They're waiting for us out in the hall.
They're waiting for us out in the hall. My question was, is there a way to put on our next meeting extension of the DCPC for the ocean management?
It has to be, it's over.
They have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or someone has to do it, but.
Anyway, is any other business brought for the Assembly?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You need to sign
Opposed?
the one that you